morning. So many questions to ask about sodium, and that's what we want to talk about this morning. Sodium reduction, what is it all about? What's there are those who believe that it's, well, of course, on the one hand, we know that sodium is essential for us as human beings, that it's an essential mineral that helps maintain fluid balance, supports nerve function, and the rest of it. But the concern this morning is about sodium reduction. Why? Well, joining us this morning is Dr. Davis Omotola, who is a nutrition consultant. He joins us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr. Omotola.
Good morning. It's nice to be here with you.
Yeah. Sodium reduction. Why is it a major public health issue in Nigeria?
Yes, it is. It is a public health issue, given the fact that a sizable number of Nigerians are down with hypertension. It's a major cause of death, non-communicable death. And we have a huge burden of strokes and hypertension in our population. So it's a major concern for the country, it's a major concern for individuals and particularly communities. And government are taking it upon itself to be able to intervene, as well as in line with WHO recommendation and call on countries to be able to look into it, because sodium, which is a major component of our salt, is a major risk for hypertension.
Okay, but
Over.
Yeah, but what are the major causes of this excess intake of sodium?
Well, WHO recommends that individuals, adults, should not take more than a teaspoon of salt in a day, and which translates to about 5 grams of sodium chloride or salt, or about 2 grams of sodium per day for an adult. And given the fact that many of us consume far above that level, then WHO called that most countries globally should, between 2013 and 2000, should reduce the level of salt, population salt consumption, to less by about 30% of the level in 2003.
Okay, so the question then is how? How do we consciously or unconsciously, directly or indirectly, take on so much excess, maybe without even knowing it?
Yeah. The beauty of it is that salt consumption is a learned thing. We all got into the world to develop our taste for different things. Salt happens to be one of such things that we develop taste for. And so it's a learned thing, and then we can unlearn it when we now realize that it is injurious to our health, and then we can consciously reduce it. And the government is also putting in place strategies to also help us to be able to reduce our salt intake. Part of the strategy which the WHO had recommended is regular surveillance, to be able to monitor the consumption, the uses and the sources, as well as the impact.
Sorry, Dr. Motala. My apologies, Dr. Motala. The question I'm trying to imagine how the viewer right now is taking excess sodium without knowing it. Do we take them in our foods at home? Do we take them?
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe we even take sodium without knowing that we are taking excess.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I think and I understand your question. Your question is, do we take sodium? Yes. Sodium is part of what we call salt. Salt in chemical formulation is called sodium chloride. So that is how we take sodium. And then there are other forms of, that's one major source. That's the one that we're trying to be able to reduce. But sodium, like you said in your intro, is also available in most foods. It's contained in many foods because of its value, physiological value. is required to be able to maintain nutrient balance, electrolyte balance. It's also required for transmission of impulses and the rest of that. So, but because it's a major component of salt, and that is the one that we deliberately add, if we have limited ourselves to the one that naturally occurs in most of our food, there's hardly any living food substance or living substance that does not contain substance. I mean, does not contain sodium. So that's the one that we're trying to control. We are trying to control the one that we are intentionally add to the natural food that we take.
So
most of us, and when you take a high level of sodium or salt, you definitely know that you are taking salt. And when you know you are taking salt higher than what you normally say, you say, oh, this food is salty because it contains more salt than is required. Okay. And that's what we are talking about.
Okay, good. So how is this connected to or linked to health conditions like, hypertension and stroke in particular?
Yes, thank you. Studies have shown that the consumption of the level of consumption of salt or sodium, let me put the word sodium, is linked to a risk factor to having high blood pressure, which we refer to as hypertension. And the higher the blood pressure, the higher is the risk of coming down with stroke and coming down with other non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular diseases, including stroke.
That's
the link.
Oh, okay. So is there a kind of regulation, is there a role for bodies like NAFDAC to play in this effort?
Yes, thank you very much. I think this is where government has come in. Government has recently promulgated, developed a guideline to guide the total array of possible ways to be able to control it through surveillance, through our food consumption. We recognize that most of us are now living an urban lifestyle, and the urban lifestyle predisposes us to eating outside from the home. And then most of the processed foods, a couple of them contain higher than normal or higher than required level of salt to be able to meet public health concern or public health for the health of the people. So government has now set up that through regulatory means to be able to control the level of sodium or salt in some of these processed foods because they are found to be one of the culprits which Nigerians taking higher level of sodium in their diets. And so NAFDAC has a major role in trying to be able to regulate what is processed and the level of sodium that is contained in these processed foods and meals. So NAFDAC definitely has a role.
Okay.
Standard Organization also have a role. And apart from the guideline that the government has put in place.
Okay.
And the media too is part of the responsibility to be able to bring to the public knowledge, to create the awareness, and to be able to communicate in a manner that people can easily understand that they need to be conscious of what they consume because of its health implication.
So I know that you mentioned that this is an enforcement, and enforcement will probably go directly to food manufacturers. But is there a way to monitor what food manufacturers, by the food manufacturer, monitoring system by the food manufacturers themselves? You're a nutrition consultant, so you would also understand that sometimes it's the food manufacturers themselves that need to take caution first.
Yes, that's why, thank you. That's why standards are provided for many foods. For foods that are manufactured legally, they have standards they must comply with. And those standards are prescribed, and targets have been set in terms of the content of those foods, of such foods and meals. So the standard organization is to be able to create the relevant standards which such foods must meet, and then NAFDAC also monitors what is contained in those things, whether they're in line with what the health recommend or what is good for the health of the people. So these standards have been set in terms of benchmarks have been set, targets have been set when this benchmark must be met. So these are all contained in the guideline which government recently developed and made available to the public.
Is there a way to, forgive my naivety, I've forgotten totally my chemistry in secondary school, so you'll forgive me, Dr. Motala, but is there a way to reduce the sodium in sodium? I don't know if there's anything like that, the efficacy of it, such that the saltiness is reduced so that it's less harmful, even if someone mistakenly put a little too much in?
Yes, it is the quantity that you consume at a time that that we are referring to. So the quantity of sodium or the quantity of salt, invariably when you consume a large amount of salt, you are invariably consuming a large amount of sodium. So the emphasis is now to reduce the salt content, the quantity of salt in those food items per unit of them. And so that's what government is put in place, and then to encourage people to also be conscious of that fact, to be able to ensure that they reduce the level of salt consciously in what they take, both in terms of home and in public spaces. And government also put in place to be able to create what we refer to as an enabling environment for people to be aware. A part of the regulation that NAFDAC is working on is to be able to also create the awareness so that people will be able to read the label, what we refer to as the front of the pack label, to be able to tell you that this pack of food or what you are going to take contains this level of salt, and the permissible range is such that the purchaser or the client or whoever is buying the food will be able to know that, oh, this level of salt the level of salt contained in this particular is high and the level is low or permissible, so that you can easily read it. And then, unlike the other labels that contains the nutrient contents, which sometimes appear in tiny lettering, but this one will be big enough to be able to consider the implication, and then people can easily read, which we refer to as the front of the pack labeling.
Okay.
And these are part of what's the revision that NAFDAC is also working.
Well, perhaps to give context to the viewer so that there is understanding of what exactly we're dealing with, how critical are the numbers? What effect is this sodium overdose, if I can use that term, what's the effect on our numbers?
Okay, the number of Nigerians that are down with non-communicable diseases are rising. As at the last count, is about 34% of Nigerians have come down with non-communicable diseases that are related to salt intake. And what WHO has recommended, and what the ministry is also trying to do, is to try to bring down this number to less than 25%, to bring back down to less than 25%. And this target has been set as far back as 2013 globally, but Nigeria is just starting with this guideline.
Is there,
and the number is also increasing, and you will know, you will know until recently. There's hardly any time you look at the television set or listen to radio without people asking for donation to be able to have a kidney transplant, to be able to help them, because these are also related to the issue we're talking about.
So is it something that's peculiar to young people, or is just all across board?
It's all across board. Before now, you hardly find... hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Before now, you hardly find people under 18, 20 coming down with hypertension. But now, it is all over. You even find children coming down with hypertension, and it's not unconnected with the lifestyle and the food they take. people always believe that when you are 40 and above, yes, it is common to find people who are hypertensive at that age. But now it has come down because of lifestyle and the kind of things that we consume.
We'll definitely have other conversations with you on this matter, Dr. Omotola, because 18-year-olds coming down with hypertension, so many people will cringe in their graves to imagine the possibility. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Davis Omotola is a nutrition consultant, joins us from our studio in Abuja to talk about the need for us to focus on sodium reduction. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Okay.